All right, guys, we got a spicy topic today. Usually gets the people going, and that is alcohol. I think most people know that it's not great for you, but most people don't actually understand how much it impacts their fitness, their recovery, and their whole life, really. And listen, we're not here to tell you to never to drink again. This isn't about guilt or restriction. It's about giving, just kind of laying out the facts so that way you can make informed decision, actually find that balance that fits your goals and your lifestyle.
Yeah, and because for most of us, most people in general, and most of our clients, alcohol is somewhat a part of their life, whether it's a little or larger. And so, we have birthdays, weddings, date nights, work events, all that kind of stuff. And the reality is, we can still make progress and you still feel really good about your health journey while still enjoying those things. We just have to kind of have the right approach and the right mindset behind alcohol.
Hmm. Yeah, and before we get into that, what's been going on in your world? Anything new?
You'd start off with me, right? We were just talking about this actually, how we were like, what's going on? Like, I got nothing to talk about. So, of course, Mackenzie's like, hey, you know what? Why don't you start? Okay, so I got an idea. So let's talk about Seinfeld. Nick and I are big Seinfeld fans, and Mackenzie had never, ever seen Seinfeld before. So I don't know how we did it. Somehow we talked to her, and maybe she was just super bored one night, but she watched an episode. So give us a little feedback. Tell us be honest. It's okay. I mean, if you don't love it, we're gonna judge you about it, but we're just tell us what you think.
Yeah, you guys are funny. For people that don't know, Nick is another one of our teammates, and they were every single time on our team meetings they get on and they're like, "You need to watch Seinfeld. You need to watch it." And every single week I ask them, "What can I do to better support? Is there anything I can do?" And they said, "You need to go watch it." So I'm like, "Oh fuck, okay." Like if that's literally what they're asking me to do, like I got to do it. So that's the main reason I did it is because that was what you guys asked me to do, and so of course I'm gonna go and do it. Um, but yeah, I don't watch like most people know. Like I don't have a TV. I don't watch shows or anything. I just really struggle sitting out and watching that kind of stuff, just because there's so much other shit. Like I never have time to just like sit and do nothing, and I just feel like there's so many more other productive things that I want to do. So yeah, I had a little bit of time. It was still like I'd say like slightly forced, but like I was still like able to like be present and intentional and like watch it. But I think it's just because of that, just because of my mentality, like it's hard for me to get into anything like that. But overall, it was a good show. Like it's funny. I like it. It reminds me of How I Met Your Mother, which is one of my favorite shows. I watched it like probably 15 times through when I was younger. Like it was my favorite. So it reminds me a lot of that. So I can see all the hype.
Well, and I can't speak for Nick, but I know for me, one reason why I love Seinfeld so much is it was just like based on reality. Like so many of those things like happen some in some kind of way in your own life. And so there's so many times where I'll sit there and something will happen. I can all of a sudden I go back to a Seinfeld episode. Even though like this was filmed in the 90s, this is like so long time ago. I'm still like, oh man, this is like a Seinfeld episode, like in person right now, and so I'd love to be able to see like an updated version where everyone's the same, but they're just, like have all the technology and everything that's going on in the world. I think it would be entertaining. So, and I think the other reason too is that and like Friends and a couple like Office, some of those shows, like I just have those like one-liners. Like you said, you've watched like How I Met Your Mom like 15 times. I've watched all these episodes so many times. I have those like one-liners like stuck in my head, and so
Yeah.
things will pop up, and I reference that, and so like if no one's seen that, it's not as much fun, because like I have no
Right.
idea what you're talking about. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
The Office is another classic one. I did love that one. That one's so funny.
It is. It is the. Did you see the CPR episode where?
Oh, that's the best.
And
That's
see,
classic.
that's the thing too. Nowadays, like I'll go back and I'll just watch scenes.
Yeah.
I'll just pull that one up just so I can laugh. And especially if I'm just kind of like I need to watch a funny show or something tonight. I'll do that. Is there any? I was also thinking, are there any movies out there that, and it could be, the stupidest movie ever, but just a movie where you're like, oh man, like this was so funny. Like I have all these like one-liners stuck in my head.
That's the thing. I don't watch any movies. I also didn't have a childhood and didn't watch them growing up either, so I got nothing.
Oh man. Well, for me, it's Dumb and Dumber. So,
Okay.
have you ever seen that, or have you heard of
I
it?
think I have. I just don't remember it.
Okay, you need to go back and watch that one. That, the title is perfect because it is the dumbest movie ever, but it's got like so many good lines, and I mean, still to this day, I'm still pulling out one-liners from that relate to life, and so yeah. If you're bored again, watch, or maybe I'll just send you some scenes from that. But you got to watch the whole movie. You can't just watch scenes. You got to watch the whole movie and feel it out. So I know that's a lot longer time
Oh
commitment. So
boy.
maybe that's in the future. Maybe you have a day off and it's raining and it's super boring and you pull that up. But that's a classic.
Fair, fair.
But anything else going on? I mean, I'm trying to think. It's we just had Labor Day, which was nice to have a 3-day weekend. Looking forward to fall break coming up, and the weather is starting. I don't know how's the weather in where you are right now.
It's starting to get more like it's still like it says it's hot out and sunny, but it's like more reasonable. Like you don't go outside and you're not dying, so it's pretty nice actually.
Yeah, it's been really nice here, and of course it coincides with football season. So like high school football is starting, and of course my daughter's dancing, so that's fun to watch her. And then this is kind of like one of my favorite times of year for sports because we have I'm a huge baseball fan, so like we're like in the midst of like this is a stretch run, right? Like this is where you make the playoffs and stuff. And so every game is like super important. And then you have college football just started, NFL starting this week, and it's like all like those are my two favorite sports. So just everything's like coming together, and it's just like there's so much hype and energy, and so I was telling another client about what I was there is like what's going on with you, and I was just kind of going on and on about all the sports I've been watching this past weekend. So it's a fun. And that's going back to watching shows. Like I really don't even watch shows anymore. It's just like if I watch anything, it's all sports. And so I'm really looking forward to this time of year with all the baseball and football that's going on.
That's awesome. Yeah, lots of action to keep you busy. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I ride those highs and lows because it keeps me busy with I'm excited about my teams, and then also, of course, there's gonna be times where my teams don't win, and I take it kind of seriously. So
Well, I'm sure.
I get into it for sure.
No, that's good. It's good to have that type of stuff that you're passionate about too. That's kind of outside of work or fitness or so. I mean, it's kind of fitness, but still, it's nice to have that kind of outlet and just something to unwind or, in your case, I guess, kind of get fired up too. But it's
Yeah.
nice to have that.
Well, and I think too, it opens up a whole nother group of people that you can talk to. There's
Hmm.
a lot of times we all talk to people, and the only thing I ever talk to them about is sports.
Oh yeah.
And so I think it's fun to have those different passions or different hobbies or different things that you're just really interested in, and you can connect with different people that have those interests, and then you just have like all these different groups of friends it just makes, I guess, everything just more rewarding and more enjoyable to talk to and know different people, different interests.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great perspective. And yeah, because I feel like sports is a good way, like so many people are into it. It's like an easy way to just initially connect with someone right off the bat. I see guys do that all the time. Like every time I'm hanging out, like playing volleyball, all the guys are like, oh, like you watch football? And they like start going on and on about it. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but good for them.
Well, it's funny you said that. That reminds me. So, I'm in Knoxville, and it's a huge college town. So, of course, you can pretty much talk to anybody about Tennessee sports, and all of a sudden you have a great conversation, right? And I think that's fun. I've talked to people that I've never ever talked to before, ever again, and had a great conversation just about like Tennessee sports. Or I remember one time in Houston, it was the Rockets, the NBA Rockets had just won, or they had just won the conference championship, and they were going on to the finals. And I actually got to go to the game, and I was with a couple of friends, and we were just walking the streets. Everyone's excited, and this big guy was just kind of like by himself. He kind of like came out of the shadows, and it was kind of scary at first. Like, what's this guy going to do? And he came up to us and just gave me a huge like bear hug, squeezed me tight. He's like Rockets, and like we were all high fiving him and fist bumping. He walked away, never saw him again. It was like random encounter, but it's just you just get so wrapped up into it. And again, you create that bond with those people. They could be completely different than you, but that moment or that game, like you guys are all like best friends.
I love that. Yeah, I feel like there's very few things where you have that type of like initial connection or like just that way to bond with people that are completely random, like you said. I feel like not many things like are similar in that sense.
Yeah, there's really not, and so that's just another reason why I just love sports so much.
That's awesome.
So speaking of sports, one thing that is very common with that's associated, I guess, with sports, whether you're at home or at the games, is alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm.
So should we get into that? Kind of talk about our own personal experiences, and then just we'll talk about a few other things about alcohol in general.
Yeah, I feel like it's good to talk about our experiences because we kind of have like different same but different perspectives. Like we have different approaches in our life. So I know we've talked about in the past, but walk us through kind of how you approach alcohol, your relationship with that, and what that looks like day to day.
Yeah, so my journey, my journey through alcohol, right? That's a funny way to say, but that's been a little different. So when I grew up in high school, it was kind of one of those things like a lot of high school kids drank, and of course we weren't supposed to, or weren't allowed to, so it was all kind of on the side type of thing. But I did not, and I think it was if I had to go back and like really think about why I didn't, it wasn't anything I really thought about it. I think it was just everyone else was doing it. And I was just like, I don't really feel like doing it. Just because it's such a common thing everyone else did. So I just didn't. That was really the only reason. And I never felt pressured or anything. My friends were awesome about it. They never made fun of me. And a matter of fact, I could have probably, had free alcohol the rest of my life. It was like, hey, anytime you want to drink, Laurence, let us know. Like, we'll buy you whatever. And that was kind of like the extent of it, and no one ever really cared about it. And I think it was almost kind of a cool thing for them to be like, oh, it's cool that he can be disciplined and not have that type of thing. And then I'd same type of thing in college for the most part. Every now and then I would have a little bit to drink, and it was hardly anything for the most part. And then when I graduated, I kind of let loose a little bit in terms of I started drinking a little more. And I think mainly it was just because I was out of college. I didn't really have many responsibilities. I started going out a little bit more because there was nothing else I had to wake up for, other than just jobs and things like that. And so I kind of let loose a little bit, and maybe that was just kind of some built up, hey, I've been so disciplined for so long. It's kind of like having that meal, that you've been so strict on, and you have this big meal. And so, I drank a little bit more, and then I kind of went through that phase, and then I kind of went through a phase where I didn't drink again, and now I'm kind of at a place where I kind of have a balance. Like I do enjoy drinking out more often than I did, a lot when I was younger. But I don't have to. It's just sometimes it depends, and a lot of times it depends. I'll look at the menu, and if something catches my eye, I'll grab it. If not, I'm like, I don't really like anything here. We've talked about my Taco Tuesday, so I've kind of habit stacked it, I guess, in a way. My margarita with my Mexican food. We talked about how that can be a negative, right? It's almost like I have a hard time now eating Mexican food without having margaritas. So that's probably something I need to work on. But and so now I kind of have like a balance of it where I do probably drink more often now than I did obviously a long time ago. But it's usually for a specific reason. I enjoy it a little more, and I kind of got into like trying different types of like tequilas and things like that, and just kind of experimented. I'd already go to a restaurant like, oh, I've never had this one before. Let me just try this and see what this tastes like, and so that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah, and I feel like that's generally where most people want to be. It's just having that good balance of like not controlling their life and just being able to go and be like, hey, like I really want to try this today. Or, I'm feeling like having a drink here and there, but it's like not something that controls you, or not something that you have to have all the time. So I feel like that's like a really healthy, balanced approach, and that most people strive for. For me personally, most people probably knows like I relied on alcohol a lot when I was in like high school, college, went through that crazy phase where I was just using that to numb myself, and so I was drinking super excessively just purely to escape how I was feeling and just feel better, even though it ended up making me feel worse in the long run. And so after that, once I started really getting into fitness and taking my mental health seriously and my health seriously overall, that's when I just basically lost the desire to drink just because this type of stuff was more important to me. And then basically since then, I haven't really drank at all. So I'm probably going on like 5, 6 years now of not drinking. And like if I want to have something here and there, I will. But it's like I never do. Or if I do, it's like I take 2 sips. I'm like, ugh, I don't want this. So like basically, I just don't drink. I have no desire to, and that's just how I operate. And that's what I enjoy. So that's kind of my experience in a nutshell.
Do you think you would have had? Do you think you'd be in the same spot now if maybe when you started drinking, it was a or more healthier approach, like a more balanced approach?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's possible. Um, yeah, I don't know actually. That's a really good question. It'd be hard to say. Like it could be, but also I don't know. I just don't really have much appeal. Like it doesn't taste good to me. It's like so much sugar and extra calories if like I want it to taste good. So I'm like, what's the point? But who knows?
Yeah, and we'll talk about this. There's a lot of negatives to obviously drinking alcohol, and there's not really a benefit in terms of for your body. Like it's. I mean, people will call it poison. It is kind of a poison in your body. So, there are a lot of times that even though I feel like I have a pretty good balance, that there are a lot of times where like, yeah, I should probably not be drinking this. Like, does it really give me a whole lot of benefit? And it is hard. I mean, I don't feel like I'm addicted to it, but there's times like, oh well, I really do like to have one with my Taco Tuesday. Or I do like to have where I go out. There's this place they make a really good drink here. So it's always a challenge, to decide kind of like where's that balance and how important it is and should I be doing it or not.
Yeah. I think as I'm reflecting on it more too, it's like to me is there's just I don't get anything out of it. I think in the past my mentality was like, oh, I want to feel just like more loose and just like whatever, but I have a crazy high tolerance even though I don't drink, which is also crazy. But no, like it's actually wild. Like my liver metabolizes super fast or something. Like even when I went under anesthesia, like they gave me a dose more than like a grown man and I still woke up midway through and they're like, what the hell is going on? So like my body's
Whoa.
weird where I have this like
Wow.
crazy tolerance. So it's like I can drink and like won't feel like the effects of it aside from just like headache or just like my stomach's upset. So I'm like, okay, what's the point? I just feel like shit, you know?
Yeah, that does not sound like a fun way to have a drink.
Yeah, so I'm like, what's the point? What, why do I want to do that? No.
Well, and something else is very interesting, and I've just started recently hearing about this, is that a lot of the younger generation now, they're drinking way less.
Hmm.
Because I know, like I mentioned, like when I was in high school and college, like I would say like 90% of people drank, right? At least something every week, or at least every now and then, or and so I was actually looked it up today, and there are a few different polls out there that says like only like about 50% of adults now report that they consume alcohol, which is like the lowest that they've tracked since 1939.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I mean, some of these numbers, I'm like, is that real? And like, I think it was like down like 67% in 2022 and 62 in 2000. So it's the decline is definitely pretty pronounced, and especially among women. Women had a larger percentage, and young adults were only at like 50%. So, and then also the number of drinks that the people that did drink, how much they were drinking was down, almost like a drink a week. So I thought that would be interesting. Kind of talk about. I don't know if you've heard that or seen any research, and then what are your thoughts? Like, why do you think that's? I even pulled up some like generations. Let me go over this real quick. I thought it was interesting. So like the boomers, right? Those are like 46 to 64. Like apparently, like they kind of drank heavily in their youth, and there are a lot of like drinking problems. Obviously, rose as they age. Probably a lot of alcoholism and then you have like Gen X, which was like 65 to 80. They kind of carried that forward, but it was less of like a binge oriented. Just they drank just as much, just not as much at once. And then the millennials, which was like from 81 to 96, they kind of shifted to where they had fewer drinks, but the higher quality. So they drink like craft beer and fine wine, artisanal cocktails, things like that. And then the Gen Z, which is 97 to 2012, they've kind of prioritized like moderation and looked at more like health and authenticity, like choosing no or like low alcohol products instead. All right. And so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen this kind of as more of a trend on social media, or just I've seen more people talking about. Maybe it's just the spaces I'm in, or because we're into health and all that. But I feel like I've seen a lot of people post, especially younger people, just posting like, "Hey, like I don't drink," and I feel like I've talked to more people recently that are kind of in that mentality too. but I didn't realize it was that big of a drop, especially like you said, since, what was it, 1939, like how significant that was. So that's
Yeah.
very interesting. I I don't know. My initial thoughts are like sometimes I don't know. I feel like sometimes it goes in cycles where it's like even like the boomers, like you said, like it was like pretty excessive, and I feel like we like overcorrect, go in the opposite direction, or we see people like doing that, and we're like, oh, okay, I don't want to live that way. Or it could just be kind of like the trend on social media. Like you see other people doing it, you see influencers doing it, and then with social media being so prevalent nowadays, it's like everyone's like, oh, I want to try that. And then I'm sure people see like they do it, they see the benefits, like, oh, okay, why do I drink? Because I feel so much better. So like those are my initial thoughts as to why that could be a theme. But what do you think?
So I think I have three main thoughts, and I'm just going to kind of throw those out there. And so one, I think that there's kind of like this rebellion type shift, right? Like if you look at like the '60s, like obviously that was a huge like rebellious time, and people that age were like, I'm going completely against my parents, and so we're going to do all this crazy stuff. And so I think now it's almost like there that was so just obvious and just out there. And so I think a lot of the youth are like, you know what? It's kind of like rebellion in reverse. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I see my parents drinking a lot, or I see people drinking a lot. I'm not going to drink, or we shouldn't drink, or we're going to do something different because they're doing that, and I want to be different. I want to be different than them. So that's one thought I had. The other thought is with social media, I don't feel like kids are together as much.
Mm.
And so, like, when I was at that age in high school and college, like, if you wanted to get together with someone, you had to go meet them. You had to go see them. And so, of course, when you get people together, people are doing things. And if one person's drinking, there's a good chance someone else is going to drink. And then that's going to kind of just, you know, everyone's going to do the same type of thing. But if you're always on your phone or you're just talking via, you know, all social media, right? You're not actually in front of that person, what's the point? And how many people are going to be drinking while they're talking on the phone to their friends, type of
Yeah.
thing. So, and then the other thing was, I do think that people at the younger age is making a little more priority for the health side of things. I don't think they necessarily know what they're doing, because I think you'll see them have like consume like loads of sugar and things like that. But in terms of like the things that they know for sure are not good for them, like alcohol, that they're staying away from it, and maybe going more towards like an energy drink type of thing. Like they kind of get addicted. I still think that those addictive habits are there, and they get obsessed with things, but it's more like, that Starbucks frate or the energy drink or something like that. It's almost never see a high school kid or a college kid come to the gym without an energy drink.
True.
So I don't know. Those are just a few thoughts off the top of my head.
I feel like those sound like like I feel like it's pretty spot on. It could be. Like I wonder what the actual reason is, but I feel like it could be a combination of all those too. Just like everything combined and just how different the world is today, especially compared to years ago. But yeah, I feel like those are pretty make a lot of sense at least.
Yeah, this kind of stuff is really interesting to me. Obviously I'm around, people my age more often than not. So, but I think it'd be fun to talk to some of the people that more in that age and just kind of figure out like what's going on and why. And so I don't know.
Yeah, maybe now when I meet people who are also like I don't drink, I'll just be like, oh, like why? Any reason? And just kind of like get more data and gather.
Yeah, do that, please, and then share. I want to hear about it.
It's for science.
For science, yes.
But yeah, so alcohol can impact our fitness goals a lot, and so I feel like we should break that down a little bit. As far as what you're saying earlier, like it is a poison. Basically, there's no health benefits to alcohol. It's one of the biggest progress killers that I feel like people underestimate, especially when it comes to their fitness goals. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is I think just calories add up fast. Alcohol is very sneaky. One, it doesn't fill you up, like it doesn't have any nutrients, but it can stack up the calories pretty fast, especially if you're having it with like mixing it with soda or, having sugary like blended drinks like pina coladas or whatever it is. I feel like that can easily add up to a few thousand calories. Like having a night out when you include drinks, if you include late night food after you've had a few drinks, you're like, oh, like what's open, or like I want something to snack on, or even if you go into that kind of screw it mindset the next day or you're hungover, I feel like that can really easily stack up thousands and thousands of calories.
Yeah, and they don't put any of the calories on the bottles, right? So you have no idea. And so I think even though everyone knows in the back of their mind, I know there's calories in this, it doesn't say anything and no one talks about it. So it's like,
Yeah.
so in their mind, it's almost kind of like it's just like free calories. And you're right. You have a drink every now and then, it's not going to do much for you. But if you have a few drinks a night, or a few more than a few drinks a week, then that does start adding up. Especially if you are trying to watch your calories, or if you are trying to lose some weight. And then, like you said, it makes it very hard to resist food afterwards, right? It kind of lowers everything. And so, I mean, my Taco Tuesday night, I go way overboard with with the calories for sure. And I mean, and a lot of it is just because I have a drink, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I have a few more chips, maybe like half the bag of chips, type of thing. And before you know it, you're stuffed. And so I do think it affects those calories and your health just in general with the weight as well. Another thing is sleep, and I think this is where some people make the mistake, because a lot of times you have a drink or two and you fall asleep really quickly.
Mm.
And so I think people kind of associate it with, oh, when I have a drink, I get some really good sleep. And the problem is, you fall asleep pretty quickly, but the quality is usually very poor. And so you don't get that like really deep restorative sleep, and your recovery is not great. So if you're not recovered the next day, your energy, your strength, focus, all those things kind of take a hit.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the biggest things that people initially report when they reduce drinking or stop drinking, even if it's temporarily. Like, oh my God, I'm sleeping so much better. Like, I feel so much more rested. Like, they just cannot believe the difference. Like, it really does affect your sleep significantly. Like you said, it's focusing more on the quality of that. Even if you're falling asleep, is like you're likely waking up, you're just not getting that deep level of sleep that you need. So that's probably like one of the biggest things that it'll impact.
Yeah, and then we always talk about being consistent in our health journey, right? And so I think just in drinking alcohol just makes it very difficult to stay consistent. You're reaching for, a lot of times, like we talked about, when you drink, you start reaching for food that you probably shouldn't be having, or you go way over in calories, or you're not even realizing how many calories you're taking in by drinking. And all that, combined with the sleep and everything else that we'll talk about, just makes it really hard to stay consistent in your health journey. And then also, so, a lot of times we'll talk about the negatives of alcohol, but I think it's good to talk about like what you can gain when you don't drink alcohol, right? So like you're going to have better energy, you're going to be in better moods, your mind is going to be more clear, right? Your physical performance is going to improve.
Yeah. And I think that's what people start to notice, kind of what I was saying earlier, is like you start to see some of those benefits, even if, like you said, you don't need to cut it out completely, but like when you start to see some of those benefits, you get more of the energy, better sleep, better mood. It makes it a lot easier to want to stay consistent with those right things and like keep the right habits and focus more on your health. It kind of creates that positive snowball effect.
Yeah.
And then, as far as just fitness journey, it obviously impacts a lot of other areas of health too, which do tie into that. But mental health is a big one because alcohol is a depressant. It can make anxiety and depression worse, even if you feel like you get that temporary relief. I feel like that's what I was stuck in when I was going through like my heavy drinking phases, because I was obviously super depressed in a bad place mentally. So I'm like, I just want to escape. I just want to feel something. Even if it's numb. And so that's what I would rely on. But what starts as kind of like taking the edge off ends up creating a bigger mental hole to climb out of. And that's definitely something that I experienced as I was going through that. It's like, yeah, you may feel slightly better in the moment or you're distracted in the moment, but it just digs you into a deeper hole. And then brain health too. Alcohol can impair your memory, your focus, your decision making, kind of like you were mentioning earlier too. And I feel like that's why so many people can feel foggy after a few drinks. And then if you multiply that over months and months and years, you're kind of slowing down your cognitive health.
Yeah, kind of like what you're talking about too. It's like that big trade-off, right? You're trading off like longer term health for that short term, like feeling good, and it never lasts as long as you want. So, you're definitely affected big time on the longer negative effects of that. Also affects gut health, right? It disrupts the digestion. It can irritate your gut lining, messes with nutrient absorption, which is really big, especially if you're trying to improve your performance or just improve your health journey in general. Some people have bloating or stomach issues that flare up when they drink consistently. And then your immune system, it can lower those defenses that your body naturally has, and which obviously leaves you more vulnerable to getting sick. So I think the best thing is kind of zoom out. And if you think about your physical health, your mental clarity, your gut, immune system, if they're all running at like half speed or half capacity, then think about how that's going to affect your body. How is that going to affect your relationships? How is it going to affect your productivity at work? How is it going to affect your ability to show up for the people that you need to show up for? And so sometimes I've heard this, people call like alcohol like a multiplier, meaning that it doesn't just mess with like yourself. Like you're not just the one affected. It affects everything, your fitness and just every aspect of your life.
That's a good point. And kind of like I was saying with my journey, alcohol wasn't just fun. It was my escape and a way to feel numb when I didn't want to deal with what I was feeling. And I feel like that's when drinking can become a problem. It's like if you have a good balance and you have that control, kind of like we were talking about with you and where you're at currently, I feel like it can be, I don't even want to say healthy, but like it can be okay to have in your routine. But I feel like you got to check yourself and see like why am I using this? What's the intent? Like am I getting to the end of the day and I'm so stressed that I'm using alcohol as a way to manage that, or I'm feeling so down on myself that I'm using alcohol to manage that. It's like are we using it as a way to cope or avoid things or fill a void? Because if we are, then I feel like it's not just holding back your fitness journey, but it's holding back other areas of your life too.
Yeah, and even though I feel like I have a pretty good feel for it and control, there are times where I do lose control of it. Whether I drink a little bit too much, or I do drink something. I'm trying to escape something or whatever. Or sometimes I'm just in a good mood, and I'm just like, oh, I should have a drink to celebrate or something like that. And so even everyone that feels like, hey, I'm in complete control, which I think is really the key. The being in control of it. I think it's almost impossible to be in 100% control. And so. And we're all different. Sometimes it's about like, it's not just about drinking every day. Sometimes people go through that pattern where it's similar to eating, right? Where it's like all week they're just doing really well. And then like, oh, it's a weekend. I'm going to let go a little bit, have a few drinks. It ends up being a few more than a few drinks, and then people kind of get stuck in that cycle. And so they're disciplined throughout the week, but then those weekends kind of wipe out that progress, whether it be mentally, physically. And then they're just having a hard time just always kind of trying to play catch up. And I also feel like there's just a lot of alcohol triggers in life. Like I mentioned, like my Taco Tuesday habit stack that I unintentionally created. So someone's like, oh, Mexican. I'm like, oh, margarita. Just like it's automatic, and so it's very difficult to be able to control that. And so we've had a lot of clients that have kind of different relationships with alcohol, and most of them there's something that they're dealing with, whether it's something where they're just having it as a habit. Like I've had clients where they're like, you know what, I just after dinner I just have a drink. I don't even think about it. I just pour a drink. I don't even really like desire it or want it. It's just something that I do. Or I've had clients that, they're kind of like, okay, I'm going to either eat or drink. It's kind of like I have these calories to play with. And, if I have a low calorie day, I'm going to have a couple of drinks just for fun. Or, and so I think that's going back to that word control. You want to be in control of this, and then having a plan when you do drink for whatever reason, and not just do it just to do it for whatever reason it be, whether it's a habit or a trigger or something like that, but have that plan and be in control of that situation, which I think is extremely difficult. I heard something actually right on before I got on this, and it was talking. The guy was talking about alcohol, and he said one way you can kind of tell if you're really addicted is like get off for 10 days. It's just 10 days, a couple weeks, see how you feel, and you'll know where you are in that range of I'm in complete control to, it's controlling me. And I think for most people, probably somewhere in the middle, but I think that's a good thing. Just be like, I want to just get off for 10 days and see what happens. See how I
I like
respond.
that. I feel like that is a good check because I think for a lot of people initially they're like, oh, like that's no problem. But then once they actually get into it, they start to realize, oh, toward the end of the day, and usually I have a glass of wine or something, or I'm going out with my buddies, and usually we go and have a few drinks. So it's like you probably start to encounter things that were just kind of in that subconscious because like so many people do it. Like you said, it's just like become ingrained. It's just become a subconscious part of the routine. And you don't realize that until you actually go and intentionally be like, hey, like I'm gonna not do this for a week or 10 days or whatever it is. So I actually like that check. I feel like that can reveal a lot of little holes in just areas or just things that you may have missed or didn't address.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it helps you just be aware of how your body and how your mind's responding to that word, one, and then also that act, or especially if you do it kind of consistently at certain times or certain days of the week, and it might even kind of expose some of the things like, why am I drinking on this day or during this meal or with this person or whatever it may be.
I think even just giving yourself that space to reflect, just just have a little bit of space before you go and actually drink. Like if that's something you're going to do, is just like sit and reflect. It's like, all right, why am I doing this? What am I feeling right now in the moment? What is this drink going to do for me? Am I in control? I think just like giving yourself that pause and that reflection could help too with tying some of those connections and seeing, what the like the deeper reason is behind going and doing that.
And if you are kind of on that the range of, man, it's really controlling me. Like I really want this drink whatever day. Uh, how powerful, how big of a win of it is it to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to have it this week. I'm gonna,
Hmm.
just 10 days, and maybe next week after that I'll do it. But just this week, I normally have it on what Friday or whatever it may be. I'm not going to drink this Friday, and to see how you're able to respond to it, and you get through that, you're like, what, big win, man. Let's celebrate this thing.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other thing we want to talk about, we were kind of getting to this, but finding balance, right? How to fit it in without derailing our progress completely. So it can fit in, if you're intentional about it. And we're not judging. We're not saying you should eliminate it. You have to make that own decision yourself and decide where, how it's affecting your own life. But finding that balance is key, right? So planning ahead, whether you're drinking at home or going out for drinks, whatever, load up on protein, keep the other calories kind of lighter earlier. That'll help with calories in the end. Set the plan ahead of time. I'm going to have two drinks, or I'm going to have one drink, or I'm going to share whatever it may be, right? And then the key is to stick to that plan
Yes.
and not deviate it. Deviate from it, I should say. And so, because I know some people are like, oh, I'm going to have a drink, and then before you know it, they've had three or four, and so it's a lot easier to say yes once you start if you don't have that plan and really decide, I'm going to stick to this plan. This is what I'm going to do, because you want to feel in complete control. And sometimes I even recommend people tell their friend or whoever they're with, hey, you know what? I'm only going to have one drink tonight. Help me stick to that.
Hmm.
I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to appreciate it. But if I start ordering another one or I'm thinking about it, say, hey, you know what? Your plan was to do one. Let's just stop at one.
Yeah, that accountability is so important, especially if you're going out and like that there's gonna be social pressure, that people are gonna be drinking. It's like say that up front or be the DD,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
set that up front too. I think it's so important to set that goal ahead of time, but also set a realistic goal. So it's like if you know that you typically have a bunch of drinks, then don't limit yourself to one if you know that you're not gonna be able to stick to that. So it's like anything else, it's like be realistic, but also make it manageable. Like if you're used to having five drinks, all right, maybe like three to start or four, like if that's what you need to do, and then you can slowly work your way down if that's something that you want to do. But make it realistic, but go in with that plan. I think that's going to make such a big difference as opposed to just going in and be like, oh, like I'm not going to drink much. It's like, what does that mean? It's like you said, once you get into it, it's a lot easier to let things slide.
That's a great point. If you're going out with the girls and they're all having a glass of wine, or you're going out with the guys and they're all having drinks, and you decide I'm not going to have anything, that's going to be extremely difficult. So yeah, make it realistic. If you know everyone's going to have, say, hey, I'm going to have one. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to appreciate it. Be social with everyone, but I'm going to cut myself off there.
Hmm.
Pick your indulgence. So a lot of times people will go out and they'll order dessert, and then so if you're ordering dessert on top of the meal that you just had, on top of drinks, that's really going to add up. And if you're like, I don't care about calories, whatever, it's going to add up in a lot of ways. Just your body's not going to respond well to it. And so maybe that you kind of pick one or the other, right? So if you're like, I really like this dessert there, I'm not going to have a drink. I'll have a dessert instead. Obviously, you want to hydrate very well, and not just like while you're drinking, like during the day, before you drink, while you're drinking, afterwards. That'll definitely help out. You want to make sure you recover. So even if you do drink, I know it's kind of difficult sometimes. People want to drink later on the night, but if you can drink earlier in the afternoon, let your body kind of process it before you go to sleep. That will improve your sleep. Obviously, having like electrolytes, the water included that, and then the next day have high quality meals. I'm not sure where the whole like greasy food thing came in, where people are like, oh, have greasy food, it'll make you feel better. It
Right?
doesn't, and then you just made it's like you just make things worse. So the next day you just really want to be dialed in on that, and then kind of like zoom out, like look at your week and not just at one night, and just kind of think about, okay, plan it out just like you would your meals, your workouts. Like if I do want to have a drink, what would be a great night to do it? Why would I want to do it that night? And just again, have that plan.
Hmm. Yeah, don't let that one night snowball into a whole wasted weekend or a week. Have the drinks, enjoy yourself. We're a huge advocate of that balance and being able to go and enjoy those things. But like you said, get right back to the plan the next day. That's the appropriate balance and not letting, oh, like, I went off the rails last night. Like, fuck it, I'm just going to drink the whole weekend. It's like, no, get right back on track. You're good. One day isn't going to mess things up. And even your point about hydration, I feel like that's super important. That's a goal that I always do with clients. I feel like that's an easy way to set targets as opposed to just saying, like, this is how many drinks I'm going to have. It's like, all right, cool, you can drink, but for every drink, you need to drink a full glass of water too. And so, like, just going with that balance, it's going to make you feel a lot better. It's likely going to limit the amount of drinks that you're having as well.
Yes.
Another good one too is like if I feel like a lot of people feel social pressure in especially business situations where everyone is drinking, or you're at a networking event or you're at a business dinner and people are getting drinks, it's like get a mocktail or get a sparkling water with a lime in it or something so that way you can hold it, you can drink it, but like if you don't feel like you want to have alcohol or just feeling that pressure, it's like just have something in your hand. There's a lot of substitutes that you can get for that too.
Well, that's a great point. And I think to make it fun, like be like exaggerate, I just popped in my head. I remember I was talking to one client about this, and he was, said he went out and he was trying not to drink, and so he had like a Diet Coke or something like that. And I was like, next time, like but then later on, I think he had a couple drinks, and so I was like, what you should do next time, bring like a 2 liter of Diet Coke, whatever, and like hold that the whole time. It kind of looks silly, it looks ridiculous. People are gonna ask you, "What are you doing holding drink that thing?" And it's going to fill you up, and you're not, and it'll have a good conversation, and maybe that'll give you like, okay, you're telling people I'm not going to drink tonight, and so people will kind of encourage you with that, or do something fun like get like an extra sized energy drink, like the big mega one, and carry that around, and because it sparks conversations. You can talk to people like, oh, I don't feel like drinking tonight, but I want to get something fun. And they're, oh my gosh, like how much caffeine is in that? It's just I think if you do something fun like that, then it stands out, and people, it's kind of sparks that conversation, and you don't feel like you're missing out on something.
Hmm. That reminds me too. I think something we talk about a lot, or we have talked about in the past, is just the way that you frame it as well, especially in social situations. If, like, again, this is if you don't want to drink or if you want to limit stuff. It's like a lot of people will start to pressure just purely because they feel insecure. They see you not drinking and they're drinking. They're like, oh, what the hell? And so they're trying to get you to do it. But if you frame it, it's like, hey, I'm not drinking tonight. Like, just be super confident in that, or like, I don't drink, just say that. As opposed to just like, oh no, like I'm not going to have any tonight. It's like the way that you frame it, the way that you tell yourself and then also portray it to other people is going to impact that a lot as well.
Right. There's a big difference if you're talking to someone about that and you say, I can't have a drink tonight, as opposed to I'm choosing not to, or I don't want to have a drink. So I think that's just like you said, the reframing I think is huge.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel like I've seen so many different experiences with clients over the years with alcohol. And again, like we're advocates for having that right balance. A lot of our clients do drink and they still see incredible freaking progress just by having that right balance. And there's also clients who just have kind of gone through kind of similar, I guess, to my journeys where they just fall so much in love with the process and how they feel and the results that they're like, oh, I don't really want to drink anymore. Client Sean that we had on the podcast, I'm sure everyone knows by now, he over 2 years sober now, like basically since right when we started the journey, he stopped drinking alcohol and he's just never going back. He feels amazing, just no desire for it anymore. And it's been cool to see how he navigates to the social situations. Cause especially some of the family that he hangs out with is like, they're used to going and drinking and they would pressure him and all that. But now he's just so confident. It's like, no, like I'm not doing that. Like, and they all respect that now. They understand, like they don't push it anymore. So it's just cool to see how confident, and like once you own that, it becomes a lot easier if that's the route that you want to go. But like I said, like there's so many of our clients who drink regularly, still lose weight. Clients that go on vacations and they're having a bunch of wine and eat a bunch of food and they come back at a new low weigh. And so it's very possible to have that right balance. And I just think it's cool when, especially seeing the relationship with alcohol changes, like where we can still have it, but it's not one of those things where it's like we're relying on it. We're using it as that coping mechanism. We're using it to take the edge off, because we've had so many clients. There's a couple that come to mind initially for me where like they use that, they were drinking seriously every single day just to manage that, and just it's out of habit, out of like just trying to escape something or where they were at. And now since starting this journey and seeing all the changes in their health and their physique and just like feeling better mentally, physically overall, they just start losing the desire for it. So it's like they can still do it. But they have that control, kind of like we were saying. They get to actively choose like, hey, I actually want to have a drink today just because I want to, or it sounds good, as opposed to like, oh, I'm using this, or it's just automatic as a part of their reflexes and what they do subconsciously. So it's just cool to see how that relationship has improved, like with themselves, and then also just with alcohol, and just losing that desire and just not wanting to have it anymore, just noticing all the difference that come from that. So yeah, overall, alcohol isn't the enemy. It just shouldn't be your identity. If every social event requires drinking to have fun, I feel like that's just something you need to start questioning and looking deeper into.
Yeah, and freedom. I guess freedom's probably a good word to use, right? So it's not about cutting out forever. It's about, like we said, being in control and having that confidence to be able to say yes or no without the guilt or without the pressure. And I feel like in that 10-day thing, I think is a great challenge. But you'll get to know yourself better, and then you'll know that when you have that freedom, you feel better. You have that confidence, that control. Then you know that you've kind of got that really good balance, and you have a reason for it, and you're in a good place for that.
Yeah. So the takeaway is alcohol isn't necessarily evil, but it's not neutral either. So it's like if you want to perform, recover, feel your best, you've got to be smart about the way you're approaching it. And if you're tired of trying to figure this out alone, that's why we built our free school community inside. We have all sorts of trainings, recipes, support to help you build a lifestyle that lasts. So I'll link that in the show notes. And if this episode hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Share it on Instagram, share it with family, friends, whatever it is. And we appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.